Live from an attic somewhere in the north, this is The Late Show with Tom Starkey.
Good evening. I've been coming off a week-long illness. It might have been flu. Who knows? You can never get a recommendation. So what we're going to be looking at today, I had some time to think about my career, and this is going to be an retrospective on 4 years of working as an assistive technology advisor and the things that annoy me. It's not going to be one of those, oh, we did really right. The stuff that really gets on my wick when it comes to disability and assistive technology.
Live
Here we go.
From an attic somewhere in the north, this is The Late Show with Tom Starkey. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Good evening, everybody. Hello. It's good to be back. I like having to do 1 week after the other one. I still have to check with producer Tom whether I'm on a Sunday evening. Most weeks, it must be the most annoying thing in the world. So apologies to Tom Rogers, who does fantastic work on this channel. Every Sunday around about 5 o'clock, I message him and say, Tom, am I supposed to be on this evening? And he's like, Yes, Tom, it's your turn this week. So thank you very much for letting me know that I'm actually doing the show today. I have been ill. I've been ill. So there's going to be some coughing and possibly some mucus-related noises on this show. You lucky people. Well done for joining in. Excuse me. So I've been pretty ill the last week. Happily, I've been able to work some from home. But I've been coughing, I've been spluttering. I've had to take a nap after doing some work. This is unheard of for me. Usually, I'll kind of go straight through the day, get things done, all right, done, and then I stop. But I've been to the point where I've typed so hard, I've had to take a nap afterwards. So anybody who out there who is suffering from this flu or these mysterious bugs that have been going around the last couple of weeks, you have all my sympathy, because it's rough, man, really, really rough. But anyway, I had some time to think. I had some time to think whilst I was sitting, sweating, and I thought to myself, I've been in my job. I've left teaching now for close enough to 5 years, and that's incredible for me because it doesn't seem like yesterday since I was in the classroom, or what resembled a classroom, considering some of the places that I worked. And I was thinking, well, let's do a retrospective of some of the issues that have come up in regards to my job, my current job, which is an assistive technology advisor in an HE institution, higher education. I work in a university. And there was 2 ways this could have gone. The first would be like, I could give you a list of the wins, the heartwarming moments, the thanks from students who have been, helped by my expert self. Very uplifting. Very, very inspirational, very get up on your desks, seize the day, YOLO, whatever. And I thought, yeah, that would be really, really nice. That would put people in a really good frame of mind. And, you could enter the beginning of the work week with a smile, thinking about all the good that's being done. And then I thought, nah, I ain't got time for that. I'm going to write a list of stuff that really gets on my wick in regards to assistive technology and disability, specifically in universities, but it probably is going to cover quite a fair few educational institutions. So strap in, everybody. I'm grumpy. I am super grumpy. I don't know whether it's because I've been ill or what, to be honest. So this evening's program is going to be some of the things that I found incredibly problematic in regards to assistive technology and disabled students in an HE setting. This is not just my own HE setting, which thankfully is a fairly progressive institution filled with staff members who are eminently expert in their particular field. And I really, I am forever grateful, because I have had stories from members of staff who are akin to what I do. But my job role is weird. I've only just realized this quite recently, that assistive technology advisor for a university, there's not many of us out there. It's a bit of a lonely role, but there are other people who are in equivalent roles, such as learning technologists, support staff, excuse me, and other people around that general area, IT staff that work with programs with assistive technology and things like that. So there are a few of us about, but there doesn't seem to be anybody who's like parallel to my particular role and what I do, which is wantonly straddle the areas of education, disability, and technology. In all honesty, it's my dream job, and this particular job that I have now has been responsible for me becoming more healthy in mind and body, because luckily it makes me feel like I'm doing some good doing some good on an individual level. Usually, I see around about 25 students a week. That's individual students, guys. Secondary school members of staff, primary members of staff. I see 25 students in individual sessions, usually an hour to an hour and a half long per week. Yeah, I got to write them up, but my goodness me, when it comes to workload, I am sitting pretty. Life of Riley around here. But not having much experience of working in higher education previous to this particular role, and I'm hearing stories of things that aren't particularly great from universities up and down the country. And I thought to myself, well, we could all be sweetness and light in this show, and I could give people a warm, fuzzy feeling, or maybe I could use the platform to let people know some of the things that are particularly great. And maybe somebody out there listening can think to themselves, well, actually, maybe we should change that in our particular institution. Good, God forbid I have any sway anywhere. But that's the aim today. So it's a rant, but hopefully it's a rant where people will go, oh my goodness me, that's the same thing that's happening in our place and our place and our place. So I'm not going to credit the people who I've been talking to and the information that I've got from those people. They want to remain anonymous, which is perfectly understandable, because if you're criticizing some of the aspects of the place that you work, that can be really, really difficult. So, but you know who you are, guys. So thank you very much for pitching in. Thank you very much for confirming some of the stuff that I was thinking. Technology and disability is a strange area. The technology is ideally there to help students with disabilities achieve their academic potential. That's why I'm in the game. That's why I do it. I'm not there for the technology itself per se, although I do like the shiny things. When people show me something with buttons, I'm like, oh, look, buttons. That's amazing. But in general, it's about the students and how I can do something that can help the students, or how I can try to persuade people not to do something that will help the students. So I thought to myself, well, okay, so what are some of the things that annoy me in this general area? And we're talking, I thought I'd go wide. Why not? Let's go wide about this thing. Let's look at a wider picture nowadays. So I thought I'd go wide. And so some of this stuff is the stuff that annoys me personally. Some of the things that I think are problematic throughout the HE institutions in this country. Am I drawing a target on my head talking about some of this stuff? I hope not. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to shock jock it, guys. I'm just trying to hopefully give voice to some of the issues that face an already marginalized an already marginalized section of the university's population anyway. In an ideal world, it will be somebody with a disability, a recognized disability, sat here talking to you. If you're out there and you are a disabled student, or if you're a disabled teacher, talk to Tom. Talk to Tom Rogers. Come and join the team. Representation is important. People's voices are important. And rather than have me yammering on about a particular subject from a certain position of removal, I work in disability services. I've worked in education for far too long that is healthy. I've worked in technology for far too long, but it would be great if we hear the primary voices involved in this. So we're talking about disabled students. We're talking about disabled teachers, disabled educators. Talk to Tom Rogers, contact TT Radio and say, listen, it would be great if I had a slot. don't get me down. I like working and I like my job, but sometimes I think you first-hand experience of this kind of thing is really, really important. It's important for people to have a voice, especially people who necessarily are at the forefront when it does come to having a voice. And I think disabled students, unfortunately, still remain one of those groups that don't have as loud a voice as I think that they should be, given the amount of effort they have expended to reach the higher echelons of education in this country. And that's just me. That's just me. But anyway, so a plug for the station itself. It's a wide church. There's lots of different people, lots of different viewpoints, lots of different backgrounds. So please, if you think that you can add to the conversation, you can add to that the widening of voices. Please do get in touch. You can get in touch on Twitter at TT Radio. You can also listen in on the Podbean Live program. If you're listening live already, well done, top of the class, fantastic, you are amazing. And if you're listening after downloading this particular podcast, thank you very much. Conversations on joining the conversation in tonight during the show. There will be no call in tonight, I'm afraid. I'm still a tad on the rough side, and sometimes when people call in, I want to give them the best shot of being able to put their message across. And if I'm trying to answer questions, well, anyway, that's not going to help anybody. So I promise, this is a solemn promise. Don't hold me to this, Tom. Don't. But still, this is a solemn promise that we'll have phone in the next time on the show, which will be in around about 3 weeks, I think, from this point in time. So yeah, disability and assistive technology, that's kind of what I do. What I do is I try and find technology that's going to help disabled students to achieve their academic potential, train people up with them. Also, it's not just students who I speak to, it's staff members, frontline staff, support staff, management, trying to persuade people to do certain things or buy into certain ideas, or sometimes buy into certain products that will help students who have disabilities at university. And that's a great job. You know, when you think about, when I sit and think about what I do, really, I'm lucky to be part of that. I'm not too sure if anybody else is lucky that I'm part of that. You know, like a hindrance, maybe. I don't really know. But anyway, so what I thought I'd do is I made a list. I've got a Post-it note stuck onto my other screen, and I made a list of some of the things that I found that I think are annoying when it comes to disability and assistive technology. There's a fair few things on the list. I didn't start thinking about it would be so comprehensive. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got about 14 things on the list. Let's see if we can get them all done in one show. I'm not doubling up the show just so I can rant for longer, as much as I would like that, but I think the producer would probably have something to say. Anyway, right, let's dive into it. I haven't set up a particular jingle for this particular show. It's not tech tips. It's Tom's annoyances. Tom's annoyances number 1. All right, this is the first one. Now, assistive technology in its form currently is miles away of where it has been even 10 years ago. In universities, what you would usually find is you usually find a model of assistive technology. If there was any buying at all of assistive technology, you would have a screen reader. You would have some form of readability app that would help students with dyslexia and other issues surrounding reading. Excuse me. And then you would have possibly, if you were lucky, a speech-to-text program. And I kind of figured out what happened is that, like 20 years ago or so, a university did a test on some of this stuff and said, right, we'll do this one, and this one. And then every single university in the country looked over their shoulder and said, they're doing this, we'll do the same. The package of assistive technology had, for the longest time, was fairly limited, but it was limited because the assistive technology was limited. You know, the amount that was out there, the choice that people had, the consumer had, was not very good. However, Along comes the mobile phone, along comes the internet, along comes a whole bunch of things that mean that the amount of products in regards to assistive technology go off like a rocket. And now, when it comes to assistive technology, there's no such thing as kind of a set plate, as it were, of assistive technology. It's a buffet. You pick and choose. There's a whole range of things, whether it be mobile based or whether it be PC based. There's hundreds of options out there, and that's just covering the things that are specifically created as assistive technology, and that's not covering the things that are just simply useful for students with particular disabilities. So the first thing that annoys me is that there is a lack of understanding, and this has been confirmed a couple of times across the board. These generalities. Generalities? Yeah, we'll go with that. These are general. This may not necessarily be 100% accurate, but this is what I've got from feedback from many different members who are in the same sort of area as I am in HE institutions. There's a lack of understanding of the amount and the variety of assistive technology and technology in general that helps disabled students currently. And that can be very scary for institutions. So it's often the case that a student uses a particular assistive technology, and that assistive technology is new to the institution. They may not, staff may have not seen it before. They may think, oh, what's this? Why are they using this particular thing? Excuse me, one moment. Why are they using this particular piece of technology? What is it? Why isn't it this thing that we have license for? And so on and so forth. And then instead of doing the very sensible route one thing and asking the student, they come to people like me and have questions such as, this is one of the big ones that I've had, and this has been kind of replicated from a bunch of other people across the country. And they ask, how do we find out what tech disabled students are using? And they ask me. Now, last time I checked, I'm not a disabled student. I'm stunningly, boringly neurotypical. I'm able-bodied if you like. I don't really like the term, but that's one of the terms that people use. I'm not disabled, and so what annoys me is, why on earth are you asking me? Yes, I'm the assistive technology advisor, so I know about the technology. But the primary source, when you find out about what kind of technology your student is using, ask the student. Guys, ask the students. They're there in front of you. Disabled students aren't hidden away. They're in every lecture theatre. They're in every seminar. And if you see, and it's like, well, how do we get an overview of what technology these students are using? Ask them. They're there. Second row down. There, just ask them. Or, in more general terms, talk to your disabled students. Talk to any societies that disabled students may be involved in. Identify whether students have identified themselves as disabled and go and ask them. This kind of strange thing where there is a hesitancy to engage the students, disabled students themselves, in their own ways of working is something that has baffled me ever since I started this job. Something that has baffled me, and I don't understand why. Why am I getting asked that question? It might be because people want a wide range in answer, and I do speak to many, many, many students with disabilities. In fact, 99% of my student communications are with students with disabilities. But you've got to get it from the source. Get it from the source. It's no good, asking the messenger. Ask the students themselves. That's my first thing. That's one of the things that I found really, really annoying, that there seems to be in higher education a lack of engagement with disabled students, the students who are actually using the technology that the institution wants to learn about. Excuse me for one moment. Oh, that was a nice one. So, how do we find out about what tech disabled students use? Ask the students. I mean, goodness me, why? I don't know why this is even a thing, to be honest. If you want to ask a wide range of students, identify a wide range of students and ask them. I think one of the things is that with the abundance of assistive technology and the abundance of tools that can be used as assistive technology now, there's a certain, it's kind of overawing, it's kind of, and if you're used to saying, well, we'll fulfill this criteria by having this one thing, these two things, or these three things. When a student comes at you and says, well, I use this and this and this and this, I've never even heard of that, but I use that and that, we're like, whoa, easy now. What about the 1, 2, 3 things? I was like, I don't know what the 1, 2, 3 things are for. Yes, but they're the 1, 2. No. And I think that kind of conversation can be quite difficult, especially if there's sunk cost when an institution have bought in a particular product. But that's a bit further on the list, and we'll get to that. So a lack of understanding of the new world of AT and the technology and disability and how those two combined, and not talking to the people who are directly affected, not talking to the people who directly use this stuff, the people who use this stuff as an essential, the disabled students who use these tools as an essential to do what they have to do on a daily basis. That's ridiculous, but it happens. So if you're in a higher education institution and you have any sway, stop doing that. Ask disabled students what tech they use. Don't ask me, or people like me. Ask the students themselves. Identify who they are and ask them, and then go from there. That's one of the first thing that annoys me. It's going to be a long list, ladies and gentlemen. So might want to go grab a coffee, get your vape filled up, because we're going to be here for a while. Now, here's another one. Students are accepted onto courses. In universities, the schools are. I could not believe how many different schools for many different subjects there are. I went to university myself, but in all honesty, I don't really pay much attention to what was going on. I spent most of my time working in the university bar and doing the things that are traditionally thought of that students do that are away from academia. That was me. I wasn't massively academic. I was more of a student of life, as it were. Yes. But what always bugs me is the fact that students are accepted onto courses. Disabled students are accepted onto courses that require software that's not accessible for the students' assistive technology, and they require that this has to be used, but a student can't use a particular technology because they use assistive technology with it that's not compatible. And I'm like, is that a communication issue? Is that a lack of knowledge issue? I don't. There's been a couple of cases, not necessarily from my own institution, but reports from other places, where students have been accepted onto courses and then been expected to use a particular. It's often the case it's mathematical software, guys. It's true. It's often the case it's mathematical software because mathematical software traditionally is a struggle for screen readers to use mathematical software. I won't mention software's names, but it's a pain. It's a pain. And some of it's entirely incompatible. And you have to use like really serious workarounds to get this stuff to work with screen readers, things that are used by primarily visual students with visual impairment and blindness to access what information is on the screen. And there are certain programs that are well used in School of Mathematics or Sciences that are related to formula that are absolutely just incompatible with screen readers, certain screen readers. And then when a student with a disability, with a visual impairment, with blindness is accepted onto the course, and they come across this barrier of having this piece of this program that they can't use, or a program that they can use, but the amount of effort and knowledge, technical knowledge it would take to use it is like incredible. And then they're expected to sort it out themselves. I'm like, hang on, you invited them onto the course. They didn't just rock up and like force themselves into your lecture theatre. You've invited this student with disabilities onto your course, knowing that they use certain assistive technology, knowing that you have computer programs that you will need to use on your course. Did you not think just to test this stuff out before you said, yeah, come on? And I'm not saying that they should, if they can't get it to work, that you don't let the student on, because that would just be morally and, legally reprehensible. But did you not think that perhaps you should do some testing? Did you not think that look at your offer when it comes to some of the digital tools that you have to use, and look at the aspects of assistive technology that the students may have to use, and make sure that they work. And if they don't work, make sure you have an alternative, you know? And it knocks me off, because what I deal with students who come up against a brick wall in some of the kind of most stressful situations, such as examinations. In examinations, they're suddenly faced with this new app that they have to use, and they can't use it because they use a screen reader and it's not compatible. I always say to people, when I talk about assistive technology and I talk about the struggles that institutions have in regards to making things accessible, in regards to giving students a decent offer in regards to when it comes to assistive technology, is that it is better to signpost something than it is to let a student crash into a wall. What that means basically is that we're talking about transparency. If an institution is struggling to come up to spec in a particular issue when it comes to accessibility, or it comes to compatibility of assistive technology, or it comes to providing disabled students with the best possible education that they can provide, and what the students have signed up for from that institution, then instead of disregarding that idea, if you find out something that's not going to work, you let people know, and you let people know early. Some universities are fantastic for this. Transparency is so important. Letting people know that you're working on trying to fix something rather than just letting them crash into it is incredibly important. So lots of university websites have list the technology that all their schools use, and then they say, okay, this is compatible with, or this adheres to certain certain accessibility rules, such as WCAG and so on and so forth. But you let people know, before. But to let people know, you have to have had a little bit of thought about it, and sometimes that thought isn't there, and that's another thing that annoys me. I'm having a look at the next one. I was wondering, can I get this in before I put the news on? Yeah, this is something I've mentioned before. This is one of the big ones, coming from the educational sphere, then moving into the consultancy sphere, working with ed tech businesses. This is something that still galls me to this day. I've mentioned it in previous shows. Many companies struggle when it comes to living up to accessibility regulations and making sure that their product is accessible to the extent that it should be, especially for a public-facing institution like a university, where our accessibility standards are much higher than a private company's standards. So, if you're, and I've said this before, and I think I said it last, I can't remember, but this has come up a number of times. This has actually come up in my own experience. This is something that I have experienced myself in my job. Don't take a company who is trying to sell you a product's word regarding their accessibility features and the level of accessibility of their particular product. In England, it's slightly different because the regulations are stricter. In the US, it's voluntary. They volunteer their own kind of accessibility, their own accessibility report, and unless you independently verify whether this program does the things that it says, and in fact, independently verify whether it's usable rather than compliant. That's really, really important as well. Every university should be checking any buy-in for accessibility and for compatibility with assistive technology in-house. They should be doing it themselves, because before you walk away from a transaction, here's a box of things. They do this. Oh, thank you very much. I won't ever check the box. What? What? It's like, yes, in the box there is a magic bean. Oh, thank you very much for the magic bean in the box. We won't check that it's magic. Yeah, we'll take your word for it, Squire. You're very trustworthy there with your crooked hat and crow on your shoulder. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. It's a really I don't understand why. I sometimes think maybe I'm over cynical. Maybe I should take everybody's word for everything. But then I think, actually, this is money for students with disabilities. And if a company isn't doing what they're saying they're doing, is that you're taking cash away from an already marginalized group. And that's bang out of order. Do your due diligence, higher education institutions. Make sure that the companies that you're buying stuff off actually are doing the things that they say that they're doing, and the product. You can be compliant with a whole bunch of stuff. That doesn't make a particular product useful, especially in regards to compatibility with assistive technologies. You know, the old classic when it comes to these statements that students make are like a statement, that the companies make. It's like, oh yeah, this is compatible with screen readers, and they've tested it with one screen reader that existed in like 1989. God, it makes me so angry sometimes. When it comes to education technology, I've never understood people trying to pull a fast one, because it's education. You're talking about kids, but people trying to pull a fast one in regards to disabled students. There is a level of hell reserved for you, and that level of hell is full of Excel spreadsheets, I tell you. But anyway, so let's go for the news, and when I get back, I'm just going to carry on ranting. I'm making no promises. This is the thing. I quite enjoy having a little bit of time after what has been a pretty horrible week for me health-wise, just having a bit of a sit and a bit of a grump. I love it. Might do it again sometime. Anyway.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out! Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading! This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out! Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading!
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The Christian Institute website carries a story on the reminder by Minister of State for Schools Nick Gibb that schools in England have a duty to remain politically impartial in their teaching and extracurricular activities. The guidance was published last year, but Mr Gibb was responding to MP Miriam Cates' references to a YouGov poll, which appears to reveal that the majority of UK children are being taught political ideology as fact, and he issued the reminder. Ms Cates was referencing a view that children are being taught that they can be born in the wrong body, as well as resources being used in schools which focus on the topic of gender identity. The DfE guidance comes as Scotland attempts to introduce new legislation on gender recognition, which is opposed by Westminster. The guidance states that schools should not under any circumstances work with or use materials produced by external agencies that take extreme political positions. The Varsity website reports on findings by a right-wing think tank that elite universities were more likely to use progressive terminology on their websites. Cambridge tops the table in the Radical Progressive University Guide, although the think tank Civitas does not appear to see this as a positive. Varsity highlights comments reported in the Daily Mail, which warned that half of our universities peddle their woke agenda to students. The think tank generated the findings after exploring university websites and news reports, looking for a series of key phrases including trigger warning, white privilege, and anti-racism. Those with high incidences of key phrases were at the top of the table. Varsity acknowledges a view that Cambridge's political culture is to the left of the national one, but also highlights key figures in academia who feature prominently in the conservative press. It's hard to stay away from politics as announcements of strikes continued late last week. The TES reports on the continued deadlock in Scotland, whilst the Evening Standard covers talks between ministers and unions in England after the NEU confirmed strike dates for the coming weeks and months. These strikes are set to impact schools in England and Wales, although the BBC further reports on talks in Wales. Its news website reports that teachers and school leaders have been offered a one-off payment by the Welsh Government, similar to that offered to health workers, although unions have already said that the offer is not enough. Scottish media outlets have also carried a story about what it describes as fears about violence in schools. A clip, now widely shared on social media, shows an altercation between two students and that took place on the same day a male pupil was left unconscious following an assault. Whilst Police Scotland have said it's investigating both incidents, it has sparked debate on the state of behaviour in schools, particularly as such incidents have featured in headlines before. The Scottish Government has previously stated they're investing an additional £15 million this year to enhance capacity, to effectively meet the needs of young people, and that they were very clear that violence is unacceptable. In further political news, the petition put forward by three men known as the Three Dads Walking will go to Parliament. The men, who all lost daughters to suicide, want to get suicide prevention on the school curriculum. The petition they set up now has more than 155,000 signatures, which means that it will be discussed in Parliament, after previously failing to be heard. Finally, more than 20,000 defibrillators will be sent to almost 18,000 state-funded schools by the end of the academic year. It comes after the government committed to ensuring there was a device in every school last year. The rollout comes after campaigning from the Oliver King Foundation and its founder Mark King, whose son died at 12 from a cardiac arrest while swimming at school. Guidance to support schools has been created, including awareness videos. And Education Secretary Gillian Keegan praised the work of the Oliver King Foundation and described the rollout as a huge milestone. Mr. King stated, "Defibrillators save lives," and that he hoped that families do not have to suffer the heartbreak of unnecessarily losing a child. This is for our Ollie. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, a while ago I asked you what is your go-to piece of tech. This week I had the pleasure of talking to Ian Kenyon, CEO of Wirral Respite and Alternative Provision, also known as WRAP for short. So, Ian, what is your go-to piece of tech in your setting?
Thanks, Steve. In our organisation, we are absolutely embedded in sharing our information and our data via the cloud. And there's loads of software out there to do it. And there's a lot of bespoke software for our type of organisation, student information management services, the likes of SIMS or Arbor or things like that. But unfortunately, they're all built around big organisations, big schools, schools with up to 1,200 students. Certainly not for schools that have a turnaround of students who are completing courses in 12 weeks, and those students who are potentially returning but require new files. We've tried proprietary software. It's very, very expensive. But actually what we've fallen back to is what Google provides. Using G Suite, which is now Google Workplace, we have access to spreadsheets, to form filling software for data collection, Google Docs, which is, you're very familiar with everything via traditional Microsoft Offices. Being able to link docs and sheets and forms together has been almost transformational for our organisation. It's not the cheapest, I will say. The per user price matches what other software like Zoho or Microsoft will do, but offers a simpler version for us, and offers us some interactivity that we've never had before. It handles our email, it handles our student information, so gathering attendance, it handles our finance, so invoicing. The way that the suite works, the way that the package works, just works really well for us, but with very little additional investment in time, effort and training. Google offers us everything that we need. The final sort of element that has been transformational for us is then being able to use proprietary hardware such as Chromebooks or even Android phones, and the ability for us to then transfer our data and to be live in the cloud at all times has been a really good thing for our organisation. So there you have it. My number one go-to, it's definitely got to be Google Workplace.
Thank you, Ian. As always, I'd love to hear what you want to know about tech. Do you have a go-to piece of tech? Let us know at TT Radio Official. I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
That was interesting. Is Cambridge supposed to be left wing? I never knew that. I thought kind of like the really big ones were kind of fairly traditionally conservative. That's all right. You learn something new every day, don't you? And of course, Steve Wood's there with authentic information about systems actually used by educators, and having those educators on the show talking about it in a minimum amount of time. Brilliant stuff, Steve. Thank you very much. And that was so informative. Love that stuff. I sound I've been told I sound sarcastic when I give compliments. I think that's probably true, to be honest. But in all honesty, I was enthralled. I was enthralled there. That was great. Thank you very much, guys, for the news. Thank you very much to our sponsors as well, and thank you very much to Steve for an interesting insight into some of the systems that traditionally aren't thought of as educational admin systems that can be utilised. I do like the fact that you can use Android phones. I do like the fact that you can use Chromebooks. This is cheap stuff. You know, it's cheap stuff that can be utilized in widespread. And it was interesting that it was talking about a smaller institution, a smaller place, and what you have to do as a smaller place if you don't have a massive budget behind you. So back to Tom's top annoyances when it comes to assistive technology disability in an HE setting. Yeah, I love it. I love being this, but it's my positive self this evening. Just an oversight, I was talking to a company about their accessibility a few months back, and I was talking about the thing that I just mentioned before the news. All apologies for the kind of the double dose of the news there. Not sure what happened, but hopefully, editing's a really fantastic thing. But I pointed out that a certain aspect of their program that they were trying to get us to purchase was inaccessible, and he at me. I can't put it any other way. He had a right go at me. He said, "Well, we haven't got time to do that." And I was like, "Well, actually, then, perhaps you should make the time. Perhaps." I've talked about it before. I'm not trying to be a spanner in the works when it comes to smaller businesses trying to sell a decent product. But I'm not going to just sit there and say, "Oh yeah, we'll take that, we'll work that, we'll work on that critical problem that you have." It's not for the institution that's doing the buy-in to work around the problem of the product. If you want to sell something, make sure it works. Yeah. The guy was like, "Whoa, yeah, daggers, absolute daggers." I was only doing my job. I was glad it was a remote meeting. I thought he was going to offer me out into the car park. And to be honest, in all honesty, I probably would have taken him up on the offer. I'm a bit of a unit. I can handle myself. No, not really. But it is surprising the kickback sometimes that you find when you mention an issue with accessibility. It's funny because in my position, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help students primarily. And you don't necessarily think that your comments or I'm going to be honest, it was a criticism, that's going to be taken as a slight, as it were. But in that particular case, it was. Yeah, it really was. It was going to be pistols at dawn. And I was really surprised. I work in the Russell Group University. Everything is very civilized most of the time. And this guy was just like gunning for me because I mentioned that something that wasn't going to work and would not be appropriate for the students who I work with. And damn, I had to look over my shoulder when I was leaving the building. Anyway, this part is going to be a bit of a deep dive because this is a very specific area, and not many people, unless you are kind of directly involved, know about some of these things. So, students who are disabled, who have a recognised disability, when it comes to higher education, can apply for something called the Disabled Student Allowance. It's more commonly known by DSA. Now, the DSA means that you can gain a certain grant, basically, a grant to help you with the essentials of university. That could be, in many cases, it could be to pay for personal assistance. It could be to ensure that you have transport to and from your university. It covers a wide range of things. But one of the things that it does cover is technology. You are given an option to buy a laptop. You're given money towards that laptop. But the thing that I want to focus on is that you are also you're given a recommended list, dependent on what difficulty that you might have. You're given a recommended list of technology that can be downloaded onto that laptop and used. But it's back to that thing about what assistive technology looks like now in the modern age, currently, and the list of recommended technology is around about 100 odd programs, and in all honesty, sometimes there's not a good fit. So assessors have this list of recommended programs, and they pick the things that they think is going to be most useful for the students. I don't like the model. I don't like the fact that there are constrictions as to the apps and programs that students are able to access through the DSA. I think it's an outmoded model. I think it was based on what the situation was around about a decade ago. And I don't like the fact that that you have a very, very truncated list of technology. I'm not directly funded by the DSA, so I get to recommend anything from anywhere. After, of course, I've had a look at it and tried to make sure, to the best of my ability, that it will work and it will be useful for students who I recommend it to. But I don't have to choose anything that I don't think is necessarily a good fit. But I think that's what's happened sometimes when it comes to the DSA. It's a limited pool of technology, recommended technology, in England. And I don't know why it exists in the form it does anymore. For me personally, I believe that what should happen is that a student should be given a budget to be able to source any programs that they may find useful. Now, that, of course, relies on the student having knowledge of what they think would be the best for them. And that knowledge isn't always there, but it can be gained by a really simple testing process. Word of mouth, when it comes to what's useful technology for disabled students, is like wildfire. Many of the disabled students who I work with know more about their specific technologies than I would ever do or would ever need to, because I'm not an essential user. So when I see a student who wants to use technology to dictate essays, writings, notes, and so on and so forth, and they're recommended a extremely powerful speech recognition system that takes hours of training, that does lots of different things really, really well, but is very much like a hammer to crack a nut, I think, well, why is this being recommended when a student can use a different resource that would cost much more? And you'd like to come on the show and just give me the insight, give me the lowdown, because I see it from a certain perspective, and it's a perspective of kind of being able to kind of just throw potholes up. There will be reasons why there are certain technologies on the list, but I can't get a handle on it. I don't understand why you can't just give a student a budget and let them source their own technology that they think is appropriate after testing some of this stuff out. But anyway, that it's an annoyance. I may have got the wrong end of the stick. You may be out there listening to this thinking, "Son, what are you talking about? If we did this would happen, and this would happen, and this would happen." Absolutely fine. But just from my perspective, and from many of my students' perspectives, it's very much kind of, why are you restricting? Why are you offering a student a loan and then restricting what they can do with that loan? It doesn't sit right with me, and I have not yet at this point. I can't figure out what. But if you are offering a loan for the buy-in of technology, so the technology that may help, then surely the person who's expert on what would help is the student himself. Once again, it's giving voice to the people that you are trying to help, ensuring that a student has ownership of their own support, ensuring that they don't have a limited amount of technology to choose from. This is one of the things that may be slightly controversial on this show, especially in the kind of area that I work in. And I was umming and ahhing on whether to include it because I don't want to do anybody's role down. The assessors do a fantastic role in trying to find the best fit of technology for the people that they are assessing. But it just seems really strange to me that there is a truncated list of things that you can recommend that may not be as useful as something that is easily available and might be a damn sight cheaper and can sometimes be better. I assume it's to do, basically, if I had to get, excuse me, if I had to go through the DSA process and somebody said, I will give you this, and I'm like, I don't want that, I want this, and then they said no, I'd be like, what are you on about? Just all right, then just give me the cash and I'll go get it myself. And they say no, I'd be like, well, I'm not too sure about this process, really. This process doesn't really seem tickety-boo. But anyway, that's something that I've come across, something that I've realized it's not an area that I had any knowledge of before I started this particular role. And it's just something that doesn't really sit right with me. And I'm not too sure why it is in this particular form that it's in. There's probably a reason. And as I say, if you want to get in touch, you won't be able to get in touch and talk to me tonight because I don't want to cough in your face. Person-centered option would be to give somebody the money and then they could source the technology that they need themselves because they are excellent. Oh, hang on. We've got Wi-Fi dropping in and out. Let's have a look. I'm not too sure why that is the case, Tom. All apologies. So if you didn't get that, I'm just the lack of choice when it comes to the DSA is something that annoys me about assistive technology and disability. There's probably reasons behind it. I can't figure out what those reasons are. And I just, give folk the money. Give folk the money. Let them source their own technology, the experts in their needs. It might be a case that people don't know what they're out there, but if you're at university and you're studying at a university level, excuse me, one moment. If you're studying at a university level, you're pretty much expert in your own study because you're there. But anyway, so that was my next one. So that was the big one, I think, to be honest. That's kind of like the pretty serious one that's about a systemic issue within disability and assistive technology. So let's move on. When we're talking about the modern, I talked about it at the top of the show, the modern world of assistive technology, the institutions haven't really moved on, or a lot of institutions. Let's not make crash generalizations about a complete sector, Tom. That never goes well. But institutions are still in this mindset that there is only one version of something. So there's only one screen reader. There's only one text-to-speech app. There's only one mind map, or at least that there's only one license, or they only have a license for one of these things. And I know a lot of this is dependent on price, and a lot of this is dependent on what kind of budget you have at your institution. But it's all right to say, okay, we have this. You can use this. It's just when a student uses something else and that's seen as a problem. I haven't seen a student who has to use a screen reader as their primary means of having digital information relayed to them. I've not seen two students use the same thing one after the other. It's always been a student who uses their Apple iPhone as their primary screen reader, or a student who uses JAWS. And then a student who uses the native screen readers on their PC, and then a student who uses a screen reader that's embedded into the extension in Google, their Google search engine. there's so many options out there. And I think sometimes, as I said at the beginning, I think sometimes that means that people are a little bit kind of worried and a bit like, oh, what's that you're doing? Why aren't you using this thing? Well, the reason that some students don't use particular screen readers over the other is absolutely none of your business. It doesn't matter what the reason is, they just do it. So I've had students who use Apple phones as their primary screen readers. I've had students who use things like it doesn't matter what they use it. That's how they access their learning. But in some cases, in some institutions, that's seen as an inconvenience. Well, we've got everything set up for, I don't know, NVDA, where you use your laptop. It's a free to download screen reader, so why aren't you using that one? It's like, I don't have a laptop. I use my mobile phone, or in all honesty, and also these things, the use of these particular technologies, it's often the case it's about kind of the age of the user as well. Old-fashioned, as it were, or seen to be old-fashioned in these points in time. And then when somebody new comes along who's using something different, they're kind of seen as, oh gosh, what's that? Why are you using that? Because they are. That is literally the only reason that you need when you see somebody using a screen reader that's not recognized by your institution. They're using it because they're using it. And it's none of your business. And if it's helping them access their learning, that's fantastic. And what you shouldn't be doing is asking, or in some cases, telling students to learn a completely new piece of assistive technology just so that they can access your materials. That's ridiculous. I've seen that happen. And then I go into like door kicking mode. But anyway, hopefully, I'm apparently from producer Tom. We're having a couple of Wi-Fi issues, so hopefully that has kind of sorted itself out. I've not done anything to change it, by the way. I've not like kicked my router or anything like that, although I do feel like doing that a fair bit. But it seems to sort it out. Hopefully it's a little bit more solid now as we move on to, this is not a university issue. This is just a wide ranging issue that does my nut. There is some fantastic technology out there, fantastic assistive technology, fantastic technology that helps disabled students, things like organizational apps, things like speech to text apps, things like Office Lens, Speechify, Otter. I've mentioned all these things in previous shows, so I'm not going to go into any details. But apart from Office Lens, a lot of these apps, a lot of this technology are built around the subscription model. And it's a model that has become, in fact, it's probably the most prevalent model now when it comes to payment, the subscription model. You pay $9 a month to access our tool. You pay $11 a month to access that tool. Oh, buy it now and you get your first 2 months free, month by month payment. Whatever happened to one-off payment? I'm not a businessman, so I understand that you need an income revenue stream over a long period of time to ensure that your business is healthy and that. But damn, you know how difficult that makes buy-in of equipment when it comes to I want to buy. Let me give you not a real example because I don't want to use any actual product names, but when it comes to things like, you have this screen reader, it's mobile phone based, you can sync it to anything that you need to, and I think, great, this is going to be fantastic for my students. I want to buy it. I'll get the mobile phones as well, and we can do it that way. But then it's a subscription model, and so I can only ever buy in something, one subscription, one license for one student, unless I go a little bit higher up and think and then try to negotiate a bunch of subscriptions for a certain amount of people, and then and to be honest, sometimes that's out of my pay grade. I can't do that. The subscription model is a pain in the behind when it comes to the buying of technology for institutions. It is. It's a pain in the behind. It means that what I would love to do is I would love to have a bank of licenses for certain technologies that I could just give to students on a loan-to-loan basis. But the subscription model makes that a pain in the bum because you're tethered from one person with one email to one thing, and it's but this is a wider societal thing anyway. When it comes to technology, it's not just assistive technology; it's technology in general. The subscription model, you're paying forever. They want you to pay forever, and then when we shuffle off this mortal coil, there is the afterlife contract where you can pay £9 a month to use the app in the afterlife. I just a one-off payment model is probably very old-fashioned, but I wish it was still here with us when it comes to technology in general and assistive technology, because it would make things like letting people borrow assistive technologies, students in particular. It'd make things so much easier. I think that's very much an individual issue on my part, to be honest, because of the kind of role that I do, the buy-ins that I try and persuade my higher up to take on board. And when it comes to subscription models for technology, app-based technology, phone-based technology, etc., it's a pain. It's a pain. I hate writing proposals when it's a subscription model, because you think, oh my God, I've got to add it up. Oh no. And then I have to go back on the Excel, and nobody likes to see that happen. Another strange thing that I've got back from a couple of people is when it comes to AT, a lack of in-depth auditing by institutions themselves of what programs can do in regards to accessibility. This is on the other side of kind of like companies getting a little bit shirty because you're pointing out that they're not doing something. This is kind of like, we've bought this. We already have this capability in this particular program. Why are we looking around for something else? And this has happened a number of times. I had some feedback after my show on Microsoft 365, as it's known now, from techie types. Big up the techie types in the universities. Yeah. And they were saying, there was one example. I thought we've just paid an inordinate amount of money for, an inordinate amount of money for a particular program that does speech recognition to transcribe. It was a transcription program, a bespoke transcription program that allowed people to upload files and transcribe them, have them written out. Transcription's a real pain in the universities. When it comes to things like fieldwork, when it comes to things like interviews and so on and so forth, if you don't get a budget for transcription, you have to do it yourself if you're a student. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort in the UK anyway. And so, according to this techie type, the university had purchased at rather a high cost a bespoke transcription, a bespoke transcription program, but had already had Microsoft 365 that has a transcription feature built within the Office with the online version of Word, and even if it's not a particular and even it has limitations. I think it's 300 minutes a month that you can use. But it's still, Word and lots of programs now have the capability of transcribing or at least capturing live speech and PC-sourced speech. The capacity to do what they were doing was already there. And the university spent, and as it turned out, seemed to waste quite a lot of money buying in something else because of a lack of knowledge of what the program that they already had could do. That's just like, whoa, come on, what? That's daft. That, in my opinion. Look at what programs your institution already has license for. Look at what they can do. There's, especially if you have, saying about kind of the subscription model, there are improvements made on programs all the time. I talk about Microsoft 365 because it's my favorite at the moment. I'm not going to make any kind of bones about it. It's a really, really good program that has philosophically assistive technology very much front and center. And if you've got a license for that at your university, why don't you know? Why don't you know that it can transcribe things? Why don't you know that it has an editing feature that can compare what's being written on that document to online sources, a plagiarism checker, as it were? Why don't you know that you can instantly translate text within these things? Why are you buying other things? in this case, what that means is you have to have somebody who will do a deep dive into the programs that you already have and look at the features and do a comparison to any buy-in of features. But God, do that, you'll save yourself you'll save yourself a right load of cash. That sweet do-re-mi, that moolah, and that can be used to help students, disabled students, in my case, in other ways. Do that. Don't just think, oh, we need to have this particular program, buy something when, oh, we already. It's like me. It's like me. When I watch a movie sometimes and I get halfway through, like it's probably a late night. It's a late night Netflix session. It's always like, oh, I'll stick this on. This looks really good. It's like right down my street. Bit of ultra violence. Probably some martial arts, lots of sweeping camera work. And then halfway through, I think, I've seen this. I've already seen this one. I know exactly what. I was like, oh man, I'm getting good at figuring out how movies end because I know exactly I knew it because I've already seen it. It's like a microcosm of what's happened in some universities. They're buying in things that they already have because there's a lack of knowledge of what their current offer can do. Don't do that, guys. Use the money wisely and make sure that you know that you have the capacity to do certain things. And if you're already paying for that capacity, don't give someone else some money for it. Give it to me. I'll look after your cash for you if you want to chuck it around. I like money. I like spending it, and I also, I'm sat on the floor in an attic at the moment, so a desk would be nice. Give me the cash. So next one. Now this is another kind of deep dive one, but when it comes to accessibility and when it comes to what universities have to do in regards to their materials, their forward-facing materials, either on websites and so on and forth, has to be a high level of accessibility. And what I'll do, I think, is I'll do another show about what that means, what that actually looks like, because there's been the reason. And this is awful, but the reason that assistive technology and accessibility are at the forefront because legislation was introduced. That's the only reason I ever get to talk about it. That's the only reason, to be honest, I assume that that's one of the reasons that I was employed in this particular position in the first place. Legislation was introduced in this country that says that you had to have a certain level of accessibility, otherwise you are going to be in a lot of trouble, you naughty, naughty people. But I've been in situations, and this is a personal one as well, I've been in situations when I've been talking to companies who that is uploaded. Now, those alternative formats, okay, it's often the case that that's as accessible as the design of the original document, but at least people have the option, that for me is an indicator of a company that is at least thinking about accessibility and taking some responsibility for the process of finding information on their particular site. And it's a good example. I like, I like Blackboard. I like the Ally tool that allows you to check the accessibility of the documents that you're uploading, and I like the fact that you can download documents in different formats. So you can download them in a labeled PDF. Labeled PDF is a bit hit and miss sometimes, but anyway, a Word document. You can even download it as an immersive reader document. I've talked about immersive reader as a readability tool in previous shows. It's a great tool, but the option's there. Responsibility that is there. But I've recently talked to a number of companies whose bread and butter is host documentation, hosting media, hosting all these different things. That say, well, it's third-party media, we can't do anything. Yes, you can. Yeah, yes, you can, and yes, you should. Yeah, you can't just it's like. I don't understand the thinking. No, of course you don't have to be primarily responsible for the accessibility of what you're hosting, but my goodness me, just perhaps make some moves to make your portal, in whatever way, shape, or form it is, accessible to the people that are using it. And if you're not, then you obviously don't care about your user base, do you? And lo and behold, when a portal is inaccessible, which section of society does that show that you care about least? Yeah, it's disabled people. And in all honesty, I'm sick to death of that lack of thought, lack of care when it comes to disabled students in higher education. Does my nut. I never used to be an activist. I never used to be. I never used to be kind of an ally, as it were, in regards to people with disabilities. I was very much an activist for teachers' rights. The last practices that I've seen, I've experienced, and I've heard of when it comes to the transactions with companies. Come on, guys, come on, you can do better than this, or you should be doing better than this. The way I see it, disabled students, a vast majority of the time, have worked harder in circumstances that have been more difficult than anybody else at the university to get to where they are. Cut them a break, have a thought about them every once in a while, especially when it comes to the tools that they're going to have to use to achieve the potential that they obviously have. Sorry, that was ranty, that bit, but you know what? It's a Sunday evening. I've had a cup of tea. I'm feeling, well up for it. Get me to that car park with that lad from the company. I'll lift him up the pavement. I'll drop him. Right. Anyway, the last one that I'm going to talk about before this is. I'll tell you, this is great. I'm flashbacks to my own school days. The last one that I'm going to talk about is the surprise of the cost of specific assistive technology that institutions often have. Assistive technology, the market for assistive technology is a small one, a relatively small one. So therefore, any products have to be sold at a rather high price to break even. I was really, really surprised. I was really surprised at the price of what I kind of thing. And if they don't have the budget to pay for this kind of thing, they've got money. Maybe I'm being naive, maybe I'm not. I don't really know. But when it comes to my last rant in this many, many faceted rant for the evening, is that institutions are often surprised by the specific cost of assistive technology. They don't see it as an investment, and they should see it as an investment in the future of a particular student, or if that student leaves and the equipment stays, it's an investment into other students, into future students of the future. That sounds like a science fiction novel, but you know what I mean. It's about a shift in attitude as seeing disabled students and disabled students as a burden, whether that be financial or otherwise, and seeing and ensuring that's able to try a very, very small difference in students' lives. I say it's very small because the difference comes from the student, doesn't come from me. The amount of highly inspirational students, like highly inspirational stories of students who I work with is just, you just like Dead Poet Society ain't got nothing on these people. These are people who have excelled in a world that is sometimes almost designed to try to stop them from excelling. So let HE institutions not be part of that system. Let's do everything that we can when it comes to disabled students and technology. Let's do everything that we can to just build students up. Don't see them as a burden. And don't give me that, oh, well, we don't see them. Yes, yeah, sometimes institutions do. They do. Oh, we have to buy another chair. Yeah, you have to buy another chair. Put your hand in your wallet, So if it's not going to happen if it's not going to happen in higher education that we take on board the mantle of inclusivity in regards to disability, it's not going to happen anywhere. It's not going to happen anywhere. So let's do it. Let's think about some of these issues that I've raised. Let's think about how we're going to solve them. That's the way forward. I mean, I know how I would solve these certain issues, but I don't have that kind of clout, and I don't think I ever will. I'm never going to become an activist. I'm never going to be involved or become a leader of some sort of group. But there are people out there who are hopefully listening and already in that kind of position. And hopefully, I know it's teaching. Yeah, actually, you're right. Advocacy is tiring, by the way, ladies and gents. It's having this over again and that explanation often falls on deaf ears. It's so let's help a little bit and try. And the way I'm trying to do it is I'm trying to make some of these issues a little bit more public than they would be usually. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things. But if there's anybody out there listening that has any sway in the universities that thinks to themselves, actually, is this kind of thing happening in my institution? Maybe I can change it. Please have a go. Have a go. And many people in my own institution, that's around about 12% of the student population. It'll be a lot higher in other institutions. Well, thank you for it because you're doing the right thing. Anyway, I think we're coming up to the end of the show. So what I'm going to do a quick summary of the stuff that's annoying me. Please, taking place. If I've said anything, right, that you think, okay, this is great, what do we do to go forward? Give me a shout. I might not necessarily know, but it'd be nice to meet people. If I've said anything that you think, actually, no, that's not right, let me know as well. I'm more than happy to be proved wrong with some of this stuff. More than happy. I would love it. I would love it if I'm completely off the bat. Like when it comes to the DSA stuff, if I've got the wrong end of the stick, let me know. Let me know. I don't want to be doing anybody down there unnecessarily. A lot of this is based on my own personal experience. A lot of this, and it's a damn shame because I would love to kind of give credit to some of the people who have given me information and confirmation of some of the things that are happening over a series of institutions, but I won't. As I said at the top of the show, you know who you are, so thank you very much. I'll be in touch in other ways and forms. So just as a quick summary, some of the things that annoy me about disability and assistive technology in institutions are a lack of going to the students themselves and asking what the students need. Having technology essential to the completion of the course that is not accessible to assistive technology. Taking companies' words and claims of accessibility and compatibility of assistive technology verbatim as truth. That's ridiculous. The assumption that there's only one product in regard to assistive technology and anyone who's not using that particular product is problematic. No. We don't like that at all. A lack of in-depth auditing of what programs can do in regards to accessibility, and you're buying things twice, 3 times sometimes. Allowing there to be in regards to their duty to make things accessible simply because they are involved in the use of third-party documentation and products. But be honest. Oh yeah, the Disabled Student Allowance, DSA. The limited pool of recommended tech offered by the DSA. Why is the DSA recommending tech and not just handing over the money to students themselves? I don't know. That's one that I'm really interested in, by the way, professionally and just in general, philosophically. What's the deal? What's the issue with that? I feel like I'm missing something, and it would hearten me if I am. But that's one of the things that I'm thinking. What is going on there? And that's about it, really. Apparently there has been some issues regarding Wi-Fi dropout and so on and so forth. Apologies if you haven't been able to listen to me drone on for the entire hour and a half. If you have been able to listen to me drone on for the entire hour and a half, you absolute hero. Well done, you deserve a medal. Mystical, it can be quite confusing, and I think it's not talked about enough. And because there is often long-winded processes and complications, sometimes students don't do it or don't get started in the first place. So next show we'll be talking about the Disabled Student Allowance, how to apply, what to do, what to say, how to work with assess the best package that you possibly can, what you can get from the DSA, how you go about getting it, and such. All right. So thank you very much for listening. It's Sunday night. Hopefully you have a really, really good week. Wherever you are working, whatever you are doing, stay as safe as you possibly can. Don't let folk mug you off. And I will be talking to you again fairly soon, hopefully. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.